Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Dante Pirouz. I am a professor at the Ivy School of Business and also a researcher at the Brain and Mind Institute at Western University. And what I thought I would do today is talk a little bit about the patient perspective and focus a little bit on branding and some of the other cutting-edge issues that we have to deal with in marketing and that I teach my executive MBA and MBA students. So if I do this correctly. There we go. So first of all, let's start off with talking about what we know about brand loyalty. So I'm going to mix in some of the academic knowledge, so from the academic literature, and also some of the real-world examples from what companies outside of pharma are doing to grapple with understanding the customer, the consumer, and in our case, the patient a little bit better. So what we know from the academic literature about brand loyalty, push the right button, sorry, there we go, is that customer satisfaction does not equal loyalty. So many times we focus on the issue of, are our customers, are our patients satisfied with what we're providing them? And what we know from the academic literature is that does not always translate into loyalty. And in fact, there we go, loyalty actually isn't enough. So just because you have loyalty currently with your customers doesn't mean that that will continue in the future. And in fact, many times customers are continuing to buy simply because there isn't a good alternative. But as soon as there is one, they'll make the switch. And that's something that we see in the academic literature. So again, loyalty may be very high today, you're still at risk. What we're finding in marketing and what is very, very difficult to manage and to build is this issue of emotional engagement. We talk about personified relationships with brands. That was something that I would say 10 to 15 years ago, many of us in the academic world didn't really understand very well. What is the relationship that people have with brands? They're inanimate, so why do they have what they call very personal relationships? We characterize, and we have actually a taxonomy of these relationships, and we sometimes characterize them, for example, as a best friend, an ex-spouse, so you could imagine maybe some angry feelings, but you still have to deal with this ex-spouse. It could be an annoying family member. And so when you think about your personal relationships, oftentimes consumers, patients, are talking about their relationships with brands in the same way, like a human relationship. So that's something that is difficult to manage. It's difficult in the social realm to deal with your relationships with other people. And managing the brand, it's also challenging to figure out how is the consumer seeing our brand and what type of relationship do we have. So building this emotional engagement is critical. So let's start with, maybe I'm not pointing the right way. A first key issue that I teach my students. What is a touch point? So I'll give you a few choices here. Number one, is it a communication with a customer, for example, in an ad? Number two, is it all the experiences that a consumer has dealing with this product experience? Or is it a point where the product impacts the consumer? So let's take a vote on that. 3 choices. All right, very good. So we've got smart folks in the room. Definitely, it is number 2. And so when you're thinking about product and how your end consumer is using this product, it actually isn't just the point where they're using it. So imagine if a patient is taking a particular medicine every day, but it's everything else. The any kind of contraindicators or sort of bad feelings that they might get before they take the drugs, any types of side effects that they feel after they take the drug. Do they remember to take the drug? Is there some sort of confusion on how to get it from the pharmacy? So lots of different touch points in the consumer experience. So what we know from how consumer products companies use touch points and understand touch points is that most companies are trying very hard to know where all of these touch points are. And what I have here is a diagram of all of the touch points that might be involved with a patient. And so it can go everywhere from outside of this, on the outer edge, more of the traditional ads, radio, television, print, all the way into actual influencers. And I'm doing some work with the Schulich Medical School, trying to look at how influencers are affecting doctors in their medical programs. So these are students who are just about to graduate, and we're trying to understand how influencers like friends and family members who get information about certain diseases or certain drugs online, for example, or from TV ads, direct-to-consumer TV ads, and how that information from these non-expert influencers are affecting the decision-making process for new doctors. So this is quite a complex process. And so understanding where all these touch points are and knowing how they affect each of your segments, each of your patient segments is important. What we're finding from consumers is they're not really interested in product. They're interested in experience. And so they're constantly thinking about, how do I feel when I need to engage with this product? And it can be a consumer product, a food product, it can be an electronic, or it can be a pharmaceutical. So experience is very, very important. Less so is this issue of what the product is and what it does for me. Consumers don't really think that way. What's interesting is that these touch points do affect internal stakeholders, and this would be your employees. And what we're finding is that if a company can develop a very strong brand strategy, that there's lots of benefit internally. So internal marketing is something that we're starting to study, and that's also very, very important, because imagine every employee within your company is a touch point potentially for your end user. So I have a video coming up next, and this is Jim Stengel, who is the ex-CMO, so Chief Marketing Officer for Procter & Gamble. And he talks a little bit about building this customer focus and how it relates to growth. What he talks about is that companies that focus on understanding the consumer and creating a holistic brand view are able to deliver year-on-year growth. And that is a phenomenon that has increasingly become important. And not only that, but that these types of companies, and you can think of Procter & Gamble as being one, Apple Computer being another, which was mentioned earlier. But a lot of the companies that are succeeding, especially globally, are also very good at galvanizing the mission internally. So it becomes a very important focus for the internal mechanism, the structure, the employees within the company. So this is something that's very, very important. So what do you do if patients don't really like what you do? There is an adversarial relationship that many of our companies have with customers. And we try to understand why that is. So there are a number of reasons why customers, and in this case, patients, resist. So why do they not follow the protocol prescribed by their doctors? Why do they stop taking their meds when we know that that's the best thing for them? So these are some of the reasons why. Reactance being one. Oftentimes consumers react to messages from companies in the opposite way that we intend. So we say, this drug is good for you, and they say, yeah, I don't believe you, or I don't like you, or I'm very suspicious of companies, so I'm going to do the opposite. I'm not even going to go to my doctor and get checked out. Another one is priming. So we find that unrelated cues in the environment can be very powerful in influencing consumers. So this can be everything from music, smells, colors in the retail environment. So imagine in a Shoppers Drug Mart or at the pharmacy, all the way to how ads are impacting consumers. And now direct-to-consumer ads is a big deal. And this whole issue of priming is one that where we intend one outcome, oftentimes we get a completely different one. And that's something that we're studying experimentally in the lab. Trust, or I should say in this case, mistrust. We find that many consumers do not trust companies, and the bigger the company, the higher the level of mistrust. They deal with companies because they have to, but there's a great deal of animosity from the consumer or the patient side. Heuristics. So oftentimes consumers don't have a lot of time, they're busy, they're stressed, they're trying to get a lot of things done, and so they use heuristics or shortcuts in order to make decisions. There's a new area called behavioral economics, which tries to look at this whole issue of when and where do consumers use heuristics or shortcuts to make decisions, and how do they make errors. Traditional economics says we're human beings, we never make errors. We make very careful computations about what we want out of life. But what we find in psychology is that is not true, and that we often take shortcuts that lead us down the wrong path, but nonetheless save us some time. Fear. So this is something that we find oftentimes with customers, is that they may get good information but don't quite know how to process it, and that fear is a very powerful and difficult emotion to influence. Other alternatives, so natural medicine, other types of drugs, not taking anything at all. Low need for cognition or confusion. One at-risk group is low information consumers, and so this lack of the ability to even process very complex information can be very difficult. Cost is a big deal. Stigma for many diseases, especially mental illness, stigma is a big problem. Other influencers, I talked about that, friends and family. And self-medication. I know a researcher doing work in ADHD, and oftentimes he finds young adults diagnosed with ADHD will go off their meds because of the negative effects of the medication, and will move to illicit drugs in order to treat the symptoms of ADHD. So that's very difficult to deal with. The issue here is to try to understand which one of these and when and where each of these affects patient behavior. So another question, what techniques do you use, or would you think are good to use to understand customers? So we've got surveys, focus groups, behavioral experiments, observations or elicitations, which is qualitative research, interviews, analytics, one or more, or all of the above. So let's see what we have. Very good. So hopefully, many of our companies are using one or more. Oftentimes, most companies rely on number one or number two. And we find that number one and two are very limited and often will skew your results. The reason being that surveys are essentially questions generated by us internally in the company to try to understand customers. That doesn't mean that we're getting at implicit thought processes or implicit attitudes that consumers have. So to only rely on number one and two probably is not a good idea. Many companies are moving now to experiments. So again, behavioral economics, that was something that, for example, the Obama campaign used quite successfully to try to understand voters who hadn't even voted before. So behavioral experiments is something that a lot of companies are trying. Observations, elicitations, qualitative research, talking to customers, watching them in their natural habitat, and analytics. So let me talk a little bit about this issue of big data. So most of us have heard about big data. The challenge is, what do we do with it? Most of our companies do collect data and and actually spend money on research. And the challenge, and you can see in the upper right corner, that specifically is regarding healthcare, particularly in the United States, but nonetheless, what we're finding is that not only do we have data, we have a lot of it, and we need to design algorithms, mathematical models to understand and filter the data. Just looking at data isn't enough. Analyzing it actually is part of the equation. In the end, we also need to visualize the data. So what we're finding is that a lot of the scientists who are working in big data have a combination of a background in computer science, mathematics, business, and design. Because it isn't enough to say we've got all of this great data and here are a bunch of percents. It's also, we've got to be able to visualize what the data is telling us and to make sense of it, and then to communicate that throughout the organization. So this is a big challenge. It will grow. So we are not just going to have big data, we have growing data. So all of these touch points are bringing in information to your company. And unless we are using that data, we really aren't understanding where the consumer is. So this is a phenomenon. It is an issue that in marketing we are grappling with. So let's talk a little bit, just to finish things up. What do you do if consumers don't like your brand or what you do? And for pharma, that is an issue, because we do find that consumers, while they appreciate what pharma does, what healthcare is, there's lots of animosity toward the healthcare system, toward pharma specifically, and this industry is not alone. So many industries, many companies grapple with this problem. So if you find that your consumers don't like what you do you ignore them? That's what most companies have done up till just recently. Do you give them more price discounts, so maybe just make it a little less expensive? Do you buy more ad space, just tell them how great we are? Or do you actually start to dialogue with these people who don't like what you do? Consumer groups, disgruntled customers, and so let's see what we vote for. So 1, 2, 3, or 4. Right, now the question is, how many of our companies are doing that? It's very frightening to talk to an angry customer. What usually happens, and I've had this happen when I respond to a company and let them know I don't like what you're doing, which as an American now living in Canada, I do that quite a bit, for example, with Bell or Rogers or any of these other companies that frustrate me. I often get a very polite response that says, we appreciate your comments and we thank you for communicating with us, something along those lines. That's not good enough. And what that does is it just makes a disgruntled customer or a consumer group even more angry. And so companies are starting to deal with, with how do we answer these angry voices. And I teach a case on Dove master brand, so the Dove brand, which is owned by Unilever, another company like McDonald's that has actually a very bad reputation among Greenpeace, with groups like Greenpeace and with consumer advocacy groups for a number of reasons. But Dove really leaned into the angry voices that said, oh, well, you buy palm oil for your products and you subjugate women, or you have a very negative image of women in your ads, and actually spoke and engaged and brought in these angry voices into their marketing and into their advertising. Another example is McDonald's, which has had, I don't know how many people have heard of the pink goo, the pink slime controversy, but for many, many years, McDonald's has struggled with a group of consumers who say, I can't stand fast food, it's junk, it's not even beef, and have never said anything really to counteract those negative voices. And they've just kept speaking more loudly about how great they are. Finally, McDonald's has decided, no, let's engage these voices. So this is a part of this larger campaign that began in the United States, but they started to invite skeptics to send in questions about McDonald's in general. Anything, you can ask anything using the website. So you can imagine they got a lot of very nasty questions. And what they decided to do is to try to use those questions as a basis for what they needed to improve in the company. And then, instead of just those questions landing in a black hole and never being responded to, they created videos for each of the questions, actually posted pictures of the person asking the question, and then tried to give a video response, which then was posted on YouTube, as to what actually is the reason that McDonald's does what it does. Risky strategy, because then there's a lot of, you have to be sure as a company that you are answering these questions in an authentic way. Inauthenticity, when you're trying to deal with people who are already pretty angry, just makes the situation worse, and you don't want to do that. So McDonald's is trying this. Many of the large brands, consumer brands, are attempting this. There are lots of pitfalls in doing this, but I think what you will see in the future is this is probably the way to go, which is to engage the negative voices and to try to co-create a better brand, a better product, a better company with these positive and negative consumers. So, ending with that, I thought I would end with an erectile dysfunction cartoon. The reason being that as a consumer marketing professor, I'm constantly looking at how companies market themselves. One of the biggest pet peeves that I have is the fact that my 6-year-old now has to periodically ask me what erectile dysfunction is, which just bothers the heck out of me. The reason being that when I'm watching CNN or MSNBC or any news program, these commercials come on and very explicitly talk about this issue, which for me isn't relevant, and for my 6-year-old isn't relevant either. And so that's a problem that I think pharma still struggles with, is this shotgun approach to marketing. Just throw it on TV and hope it sticks, rather than a much more focused, data-driven strategy to talk directly to consumers one-on-one. And that's really the new holy grail in marketing. So with that, I will end my comments. Thank you.